What are you doing?
Yo, have you heard about this brand new anime called Jujutsu Kaisen? It's insane. I can't stop watching it. How are people not talking about this? I need to make a video about it.
I have some bad news for you.
No. Hey, how about that Jujutsu Kaisen, huh? So I'm super late to the party here, I know that, but it's for a bit of an unexpected reason. Despite what you may have just seen, I in fact don't live in a rundown shed and did actually watch Jujutsu Kaisen as it aired weekly. But as I was watching it, I wasn't sure if I truly loved the series. Something wasn't clicking. I wasn't getting as hyped for big moments as I wanted, I wasn't forming the connections that I have with many other shonen characters, and I just couldn't bring myself to really get excited for new episodes. And all of that deeply confused me. If you've been around the channel for any stretch of time, you'll know that I'm a big shonen guy through and through. While I still enjoy plenty of other genres, shonen is my bread and butter. This should have been a slam dunk from the opening episode. But it wasn't, and I was trying to figure out why that was. And then I finally realized that all of this was simply because much of Season 1 is set up for a truly great future. And now 6 months later, I own 4 different Jujutsu Kaisen Uniqlo shirts. Now I'm still probably at a lower level than some people I know who love the series. I'd still probably say that My Hero, Black Clover, and Demon Slayer, among others, have had more of a personal impact on me up to this point. But I am very excited for Season 2 to the point where I'm probably going to read the manga before the next season comes out. Don't hold me to that though. But I suppose I should explain what I mean about setup and actually show you how I learned to love Jujutsu Kaisen. Shonen stories are somewhat notorious for having slow starts. Unfairly so, I think, for the most part. But I actually think the time and care they're afforded to flesh out their world, their power system, and characters is what makes them some of the best stories in the medium. But it is true that after an initial hook, they tend to slow down a bit at the beginning. That first chapter or episode has to grab the audience, and it's impossible to keep that level of energy up for an entire introductory arc. Having said that though, Jujutsu actually handles that pretty well. Sukuna's revival is the initial hook, and then 2 episodes later we're already in the Cursed Womb arc. A couple more episodes and we get Gojo's eye reveal. The show is kinda nutty with how quickly it throws rad new stuff at you, and that's probably why it blew up as quickly as it did. But simultaneously, I think that's what stressed me out the most. I got a little over-anxious about Jujutsu, I think, because I felt internal pressure after seeing so many friends and people online absolutely fall in love with the show early on. What I forgot is that most shonen stories I love took time to nestle themselves around my heart. For My Hero, it was the final episode of Season 1 and really a bit into Season 2. Demon Slayer, it was the Natagumo Mountain arc halfway through the first season. And hell, Black Clover didn't truly elevate itself until the Seabed Temple arc, which is 40 episodes into the show. In Jujutsu's case, this delay certainly wasn't due to a lack of content. I don't think the show takes time to quote-unquote get good. Instead, it was due to a lack of clarity and connection on my part. I think the Cursed Energy system is very cool, very creative, and a great fit for this story, but it's also kinda really confusing. I can charitably say we're supposed to be learning about curses and sorcerers alongside Itadori as he tries to fit into this new world, but there were a decent amount of fights where I just had no clue what was even possible from any of the characters. I think a lot of my disconnect came from not truly understanding the limits of the power system and how exactly fights are constructed. A fight would start and I'd just kind of be along for the ride, which can create some incredible moments, looking at you, Gojo Domain Expansion, but also being constantly confused by a core aspect of the story certainly cooled my initial excitement. The show does its best to try and feed you important information as it's needed, but that often isn't enough early on with how fast-paced some fights are. However, while some of the stuff Gojo does still bewilders me, and I think it's supposed to, after the final arc of Season 1, I finally felt comfortable in knowing how a fight will go down in the future. Now, does that mean I'm not going to be surprised when an old man whips out an electric guitar? No, it very much does not. But at least I have something to ground that absurdity in now, and it has done wonders for my appreciation of the show's fights. If you look back, each fight in the first half builds upon the previous to unlock more of what sorcerers are capable of, without completely overwhelming the audience. While each Gojo appearance is a nice little sneak peek at what the power ceiling looks like. They spend all this time setting up the fighting style so that now they can drop in any person and any power and the audience will be ready. What I initially thought was kinda confusing writing was simply the story slowly giving me the pieces to fully understand the tome that is this magic system. My slow connection to these characters is a lot more simple. That kind of attraction just takes time. I think the cast is solid and quite likable as they're introduced. It simply takes extended runtime to really connect with most characters. I need to see their funny little quirks, see them interact with each other in a plethora of situations, and of course see them kick some ass. This was always going to take some time, and I think splitting up our main trio pretty early on put a small dent in that. There's also the matter of it being a seasonal. Between the downtime between weekly episodes and now this long gap between Season 1 and Season 2, I wasn't spending a lot of concentrated time with a lot of these characters. It's like if I watched Land of Waves and the first 2 parts of the Chunin exams and then just had to wait for over a year for the tournament. Actually, the Chunin exams start in episode 24, so technically we wouldn't even be getting that in this example, but I'm willing to consider how much faster Jujutsu's pacing is than one of our old-timer 700-chapter manga. Add in the debate of getting me to start caring about a character who gets unceremoniously killed off, and there's our recipe for my rocky start. Luckily, Jujutsu's side characters are so crazy memorable that they endeared themselves to me almost instantly. And that's probably why I view the Kyoto Exchange as my real starting point in the series. It's the part where in my mind things finally start coming together in an actual story arc. We get to see everyone in action, a lot of explanations of cursed powers, fun fights, interactions for our main cast, and movement from our actual villains. As a quick aside, I'm a bit mixed on the villains at the moment because I think they're interesting, but they were dropped on us a bit too soon. Now, of course, there could be bigger bads waiting in the wings, this is a shounen after all, but I feel like there wasn't enough mystery around the group as I would have liked, because outside of them, all the other villains have just been monsters. That's probably why Kyoto Exchange and Death Painting hit as strongly as they did. The villains actually had some semblance of a personality. Anyway, this has been a very long-winded way for me to explain that these disconnects are why I now consider close to all of Season 1 as a hot and beautiful intro to this story, or as I said earlier, setup. Each early story arc is there to teach you something about the power system or to characterize our cast in some way, and the Cursed Training arc is there to make Gojo look very cool. I say Kyoto Exchange is my starting point because it's where I finally started to really vibe with the show, but I still consider it part of this setup. We're meeting a good chunk of the cast, learning about a lot of new powers, and finally watching Itadori learn how to control his strength. It's the Death Painting arc where I truly felt the show finally arrived. It was after the final episode of Season 1 where I was finally ready to immerse myself in this story, attach myself to these characters, and see where this greater plot is going. That arc is the culmination of everything that the first season teaches us. It takes the base knowledge we now finally have of the power system and shows us how crazy some of these skills can be when they're taken to the next level. It gives us good quality time with our main trio, huge set-piece fights for all of them, and incredibly memorable moves that I still see on Twitter to this day. It felt like the show was finally taking that next step and becoming the show that I had seen everyone else think it was for weeks up to that point. It was like watching a gymnast launch into a complicated maneuver and finally firmly sticking the landing. All of my hesitance had been blown away. I was no longer worried about why I didn't really like Jujutsu Kaisen, because once the credits rolled on episode 24, I knew that I loved Jujutsu Kaisen. It had just taken some time to get there. I don't think that's an inherent flaw with the series. In fact, in my enlightened state, I actually believe the way the story sets itself up is quite genius. You just have to understand that it's set up. The issues here weren't with the story's writing, they were with me. I had to learn the power system. I had to learn more about these characters, and most of all, I had to learn how to love Jujutsu Kaisen. And now that I finally have, all I can think about is how excited I am for the future.